Welcome to my channel. This is Spirit Soul Sense, Information for Your Soul, and I am Sharice. And I heard this phrase beginning about a few years ago when I was living in Miami, Florida, and I really got into the Black conscious community there. And a lot of Black men would say, the Black woman is God. And so before I get into like what I think they mean, they've told me what they think. But before I get into like my thoughts on it, I want to put it into context for the people who are saying it. I have two terms that I think are important to just outline real quick. One is the use of the word Hotep, which I used to use, but I do not use anymore. Hotep is an Egyptian word that's supposed to mean peace, or I come in peace. And I have associated it negatively with people who exhibit a certain set of characteristics. So Hotep means peace, and so I use the word fauxtep now to describe men, Black men, who have a very particular set of beliefs when it comes to consciousness and Blackness. I'll get into that later. The other term that I want to talk about is pseudo consciousness. I think pseudo consciousness is also negatively viewed as a term. I don't think it started off that way. I think it was a way to describe consciousness that wasn't a part of a set of well-established beliefs like Buddhism or Christianity. And so anything that's like an offshoot of well-established religions is supposed to be within the pseudo-consciousness realm. And it's not supposed to be like a bad thing. It's supposed to be like a personal interpretation of consciousness, spirituality. However, similar to Hotep, when we say pseudo-consciousness, we typically mean someone who's kind of gone off the deep end with their spirituality, like their beliefs. Because then they're no longer talking about peace and kindness, they're talking about power and control. And so when I talk about pseudo-consciousness, I want to make that distinction that I think there are pseudo-consciousness ideas that aren't inherently damaging to us, but there are some pseudo-consciousness ideas that are. So putting into context this idea that the Black woman is God, you have to realize the person who is saying it and their set of beliefs. So someone with fauxtep beliefs usually has this idea that they should be superior to other people, that the Black man should be equal to or higher than the white man. And that's true. We should all be equal. However, someone who practices fauxtep beliefs believes in patriarchy, and that the person who is the man in the relationship should be the one in control and should have power over everything. That's one part of it. In order to be the person in control, there has to be people you are controlling. And so people who practice fauxtep beliefs believe that women should stay in their place, that they are a set of criteria that makes a good woman or a woman who deserves to be respected. And if she doesn't meet that criteria, then she's definitely not considered God to them. Like, that's one part of it. Someone who is Hotep also has like this warped idea of God, like us being God and God being in us. So there is my understanding and my belief that spirit is in all of us. God is in all of us. We are all a part of God. Like everything is God. But when a Hotep is talking about this, I can't keep saying Hotep like this. But when someone with Hotep ideas says things like, I am God, the Black woman is God, they don't really mean that everything is God. Because wood is part of God. The trees are part of God. All of that is part of God. They don't mean that. They mean certain Black women should be treated in a way that they think they deserve to be treated. And so if you meet their criteria, docile, agreeable, attractive, you will be able to then be considered God to them. So I'm going to tell you the story about my experience with one Hotep. I've had a few. So I was going to this financial literacy workshop where I met this gentleman. He had his own business working on cars, and I like to support Black businesses. So I decided to go over there, get a checkup, all that stuff, figure out what's the vibe. From our few interactions, he seemed pretty intelligent. He mentioned that the Black woman is God. He wore an ankh. He's Black, if I didn't mention that before. And we added each other on Facebook. So the day I was getting my car checked out, there was another black man who came in and was having a conversation. I can't remember exact details of the conversation. Maybe we were talking about the LGBT community. Maybe. I think my views are very accepting because I'm a loving and kind person. He and this gentleman were not. At the time, I was on Facebook almost every day. I don't have Facebook right now. I was on there posting about things that were important to me. And one of the things that were very important to me was how the black community treated black people who are a part of the LGBT community. And I know when I talk about, in a lot of different ways, the way the majority treats people of the LGBT community, but in that moment I was speaking specifically about black people because I thought it was important from my point of view. Tell me why this gentleman was so bothered that I, in my little small role on Facebook, was trying to be an advocate for people of the LGBT community. I'm trying to say, hey, these are real people with real problems and we need to pay attention to them. We need to stop shunning them and we need to stop acting like the only black people who exist are educated, straight, and wealthy. Those are not the only black people. There is a whole other set of people that do not meet all of these boxes that people try to put them into. He was very bothered and he let me know in a Facebook message how bothered he was by me, and then he blocked me. That is a fauxtep. If we don't have a nuanced look at these things, then I think we're always going to be on a different page. I think it's very important to acknowledge that a lot of what a fauxtep says is rooted in actual beliefs that I have, that we might have. But there's a point when it starts to diverge and it moves from kindness and love into power and control. Domination. So we know that the evolution of humanity began in Africa, and the first people had to be dark-skinned, which means that the first woman was dark-skinned, like a black woman. So if someone makes that link and then acknowledges that we all have God inside of us, it makes sense that they would say the black woman is God. However, if you stop there and you don't go a step further to acknowledge that God is in every single one of us, even the white man, God is in all of us. And we're all here to serve a purpose, to become enlightened. If you just stop at the black woman, then you negate like all the God in the world. And then you just have this one set of people that you want to keep separate from others that are worthy of your kindness and respect and, reverence. Every person deserves to be respected. We are all pieces of God. We all have God in us. But that's not the same as being. My soul is not the same as the universe. It's a part of, I'm part of a greater whole. I can tap into the universe and being and God. But me, a God, and God being are not the same thing. Make sense? Okay. Thank you for watching. So,
are you making a video?
Yes.
Sorry.
Disappear.